A lot of people get confused about how long it takes to learn a language because of the two types of content that dominate social media. If you're just getting into language learning, this video is going to help you watch out for red flags and get a realistic understanding of how long your language learning journey is actually going to take. You've probably seen the content that I like to call shocking the natives content, or maybe that's just what people call it, shocking the natives content, where somebody gets tutored in a language for 2 weeks and then goes to some random city and starts speaking to people around the city as if they've spoken that language their entire lives. But that's not language learning. That's more choreography. That's a scripted plan of what's going to happen. I look up some pre-planned words or sentences or phrases that I need, and I look up what more or less I think you're going to say, and from there, it's really not too hard to look conversational. If I know precisely what I'm gonna say, and most likely what you're going to say, all I have to do is study very specific things to be able to look like I can speak the language at a conversational level. And if you put perfect subtitles beneath what you're saying, no matter how perfect what you're saying really is or isn't, then it comes off like, pretty convincing to someone who doesn't actually speak the language you're claiming to speak. Once you know the trick behind how people do this, the magic kind of disappears. It's like if a magician does a card trick for you, then shows you how they did it. It's like, oh, well, that makes sense, It's not like these people are actually becoming fluent in a foreign language in less than a month. And I think this kind of content totally warps people's expectations of the reality of language learning. You've also probably seen the type of content where someone says, buy my course to get fluent in a month. They sell you this very specific, kind of secretive set of things that you're gonna need to do to learn a language, and they sell it to you as if this is the only way to learn a language, or more like this is the way to leap over all other learners. If you want to become fluent in a month, you have to do this very specific set of things that I'm telling you. They give you a little bit of the magic up front, but then you realize most of the secret sauce, most of what's actually going to get you to becoming fluent, very, very fast, is actually hidden behind a paywall on their website. You have to subscribe to their website to get the information, things like that. And both these types of content really warp the perspective of people who are just getting into language learning. And a lot of times, the people who make this type of content actually do speak another language. I'm not saying they don't, but the question becomes, is the way they're saying you need to learn the language actually how they learn the language? Most of the time, if you follow the stories of these people, it's clear they learned a language in a completely different way than how they're selling that you need to learn a language. For instance, you'll notice that a lot of them maybe went to college for 2, 3, 4 years in a different country, or maybe they're married to a person that speaks the language that they learned. What you usually don't hear is those people leaped over every other language learner by buying an online course and became fluent in a month. That's not what you heard. That's not how they learned the target language. Okay, so then the question becomes, if that's not the way they learned a language, how did they learn their language? Well, they learned the language the way everybody else learns a second language, and the same way that you and me learned our first languages, which is getting massive amounts of authentic input at a level you understand in the language you're trying to learn. Getting massive amounts of input in the language you're trying to learn is the only way to learn a language, and it cannot be faked. There is no faking listening and listening and listening for hours and hours and hundreds of hours. There's no faking it. Language learning is not a process of conscious memorization, and this is what everybody misses. Languages are too gigantic, they're too big, they're too complex for your brain to be able to break them down into consciously memorized rules. They have to live in the deepest, most fundamental parts of your brain so that when you hear someone speaking to you in a foreign language, you can answer them and understand them just like you do in your native language without thinking about it, without breaking down what they're saying into little bitty pieces and trying to run that through some kind of processor in your head into your native language and try to understand all that. No. You're going to listen to the person speaking to you in the language you want to learn, and it's going to sound like your native language. It's not going to sound exactly like your native language because it'll always be a little worse than your native language, especially in the beginning. But in the long run, we're not trying to make language like a decoding Morse code process. We're trying to make it a natural process that mirrors the way we communicate in our native language. No amount of reciting sentences or filling in the blanks is going to replace the massive amount of content you need to learn a language. If you just want the appearance of understanding and speaking a different language, then you don't really have to learn a language. So if that is your goal, Good news for you, it doesn't take that long. Demonstrated by the massive amounts of content creators who make these types of videos where they look like they speak the other language, but they really don't. But if you actually want to learn a language, the appearance of fluency isn't going to help you at all. So if you're still here and you really do want to speak and understand a foreign language, then let me give you an actual realistic time estimate for how long that is going to take you. In my opinion, the most authoritative resource we have to understand how long it takes someone to learn a language is the Dreaming Spanish Roadmap. And it's not just because it comes from data collected from comprehensible input schools that use the comprehensible input method to teach the students how to learn a language, but also because of the giant amount of testimonials you can find on the Dreaming Spanish subreddit. You can go on the Dreaming Spanish subreddit right now and find tons of posts where people are confirming the roadmap based on their personal experiences. And for additional context, the Foreign Services Institute of the United States government has a list of languages that are divided into certain categories for how difficult each language is. Spanish is category 1, and it's in basically the easiest of languages to learn, along with the other Romance languages like French, Portuguese, Italian. So basically, for our purposes, I think it's fair to say if the language you're learning is in category 1, the Dreaming Spanish Roadmap should apply pretty well to your language. And if you're learning German, category 2 isn't that different, so German as well. But if you're learning a language more difficult than those languages, this isn't going to apply as much. And actually, it's going to be pretty far off. So we're gonna skip talking about that in this video. In another video, I'm gonna explain the realistic time estimates for other languages that are more difficult, like Chinese, Korean, Russian, things of that nature. The final level on the Dreaming Spanish Roadmap is level 7, which is 1,500 hours of comprehensible input. And at that level, we're talking native-like mastery of the language. We're not talking just about being comfortable in daily conversation, which is level 6 or 1,000 hours. We're talking about native-like fluency and mastery. If you want an example of how strong native-like mastery of the language really is, understand that I haven't even hit 1,000 hours yet, y ya yo puedo hablar español con bastante fluidez. Yo puedo mirar contenido nativo en YouTube sin problemas, no sin problemas, pero cerca. Estoy leyendo, o mejor dicho, escuchando a Harry Potter y estoy haciendo muy bien, todo está bien, y yo puedo entenderlo a un nivel bastante alto. And I have to comment on the fact that I just said Harry Potter with a Spanish accent. Guys, when I speak Spanish, I keep the accent for everything. A lot of times when you're speaking to people who speak in Spanish, you just keep the accent. I don't want to keep switching accents. So if you're confused why I just said Harry Potter with the Spanish accent, that's just something I do. But anyway, as you see with my demonstration, I'm not even level 6, and I have a pretty good command of the Spanish language. I can understand native content, is what I was saying. Basically, my point is that level 7 is very high. So don't let that large number scare you like it scared me. When I saw 1,500, I was like, oh my God. You know how many hours, how many years that would be at 1 hour a year? That's like 5 years, right? People don't understand. That's mastery. If you were impressed by how I just spoke Spanish, don't worry about 1,500 hours. I'm about at 850 hours, almost 900 hours between those two, I forget. So really, we're talking about almost halfway through the entire journey. But even if we take a step back further, even at level 3, which is 150 hours of comprehensible input, you'll already be understanding content that's adapted for learners. And at level 4, at 300 hours, you'll be able to understand a native speaker speaking to you patiently. For a lot of you guys, 300 hours might sound like a high number to achieve what I would call low fluency, the ability to understand a native speaker speaking to you patiently. But can you imagine that right now? Like, imagine that you're talking to a native Spanish speaker and they're speaking to you patiently, and without translating in your head, more or less like you understand your native language, you're understanding what they're saying. If you're just starting out in a language, can you imagine that? That does sound like something very difficult to do. So this 300 number, it might sound high to a lot of you, but doesn't it also sound realistic? And for people who are really, really wanting to learn a foreign language, it might not just sound realistic, it might sound doable. Once you know that the path forward is concrete, it's just listening to the language at a level you understand, that might help a lot of your nerves. Because for me, I was like, when does this start working? Right before comprehensible input, I was like, when does this start working? When do I feel this? Comprehensible input gives you a real concrete answer to that question. And it's the same, roughly, for almost everybody. Now think about the testimonials for the roadmap and how people affirm that yes, around 300 I was low-level fluency. At around 150 I could understand topics for learners. Now map that back on to the people saying you can be fluent in 1 month if you buy my course. Fluent in 1 month, even if we say that's low-level fluency at 300 hours, that's in 1 month that would be the equivalent of listening to Spanish for 10 hours a day at a level you understand. So what's much more likely with these online courses isn't that they're selling you fluency, but they're selling you the appearance of fluency. But there's one more question I want to address before we end this video, and that's the question of, okay, maybe you can't get fluent in your target language in 1 month. Maybe that's an exaggeration, but can you get fluent fast? And my answer to that question would be yes, but you have to understand the time commitment it takes. If you're talking about getting to 300 hours, for instance, low-level fluency in Spanish or any Category 1 language, you're talking about probably 5 months if you're doing 2 hours a day consistently. That's still a long time. Now you could do, if you do 3 hours a day, you could get down to, 3 to 4 months. I'm just doing crude math in my head. And that's basically where I was. I was doing 3 to 4 hours a day and I got fluent pretty fast. It felt very fast. But understand that that wasn't me doing Duolingo for an hour a day. It wasn't me sitting in front of a professor teaching me grammar rules for an hour a day. No. It was 3 to 4 hours a day of listening to Spanish that I understood and giving it my full attention. A lot of people might think, oh, well, when you're watching the Spanish, I guess, you kind of just absorb it. You're kind of just hanging out. You can play on your phone, right? No, like if you can do the dishes maybe, but you're giving it your full attention and you feel it working. It's not like, you just wake up one day and you're fluent. Every day you understand more and more and more. It's like some giant game of charades that gets easier and easier and easier, if I had to put it in a certain way. So is fluency fast possible? Yes, but we have to define fast. And we have to define possible. If you don't have a ton of consistency or willpower, it might be slow. But if you're the kind of person who is obsessive or needs it for some certain reason or another, I have no doubt that you could be just like me and pick up the language very quickly to the point where people around you are like, how the hell did this person get fluent so quickly? Now, if you're just starting or you're already on your comprehensible input journey in any language, and well, any of the most popular languages, you should go to my site, Lengualytics, and sign up for free to find comprehensible input content and track your progress. It's completely free and it's gonna help you stay motivated and stay consistent and also find content, which is one of the hardest things when you're doing comprehensible input. In the next video, I'm going to break down each of the Dreaming Spanish levels one by one and my personal experience at each level, except for level 6 and 7, which I haven't reached yet, but I think the levels people are a little bit more interested in are the first 5 anyway. Thank you for watching, and there's going to be a big boom in a second.